I'm especially grateful for DaRa for facilitating today. I've known DaRa for probably over 14 years. I met her first at the Garrison Institute when she was working there. And I remember her first act of kindness to me was giving me a book on meditation. And then subsequently, we worked together, collaborating on bringing the Indigenous Focusing Oriented Therapy program to the New York area. And then the second act of kindness that DaRa did for me was insisting that I take the Undoing Racism class. And it took me several years to do that, which is, I guess, part of the white privilege that you don't think you need it or something. And so that has been another path of mine for many years. And so it has made such an impression on me and the organization, is that we are working on having a whole initiative on social justice that will be run by 2 men of color. So DaRa has been a big influence in my life, and I'm really grateful that she's here with us today.
I'll just say that I am absolutely thrilled to have DaRa. DaRa is almost a myth in our community empowerment project, and we're so happy to have you, DaRa. And I'm so happy to see everybody this morning and to continue this. It's just amazing to me how this project keeps unfolding in a way that is almost a little miraculous, that we have a core group of people who come all the time and who are thoughtful and connected and wise and probing. And we have new people each time. And there's a wonderful openness to this community of including people from almost all over the world, many, many parts of the world. The inclusiveness is such a prime part of this project and of our way of being together and learning from each other, and the emphasis on community and on how we can support each other and how we can help each other, how we can inspire each other.
I am totally delighted to be here in the company of such great people, and people who are not only about supporting themselves, but supporting others. And so, DaRa has many accolades, and that's many things to be said about DaRa. But what I am going to say is that I met DaRa on and around 1989, and we had traveled together since then. She has been a mentor, a supervisor, a companion, a friend, and most important, a person who's committed to every single person liberation, whatever that may look like for you as an individual, right? And so that doesn't come around too many times when you have friends and supporters who are committed to you being fully liberated. And one of the things that DaRa represents for me, and I'm speaking DaRa, the human being, is that commitment to take me to the place where I know I can be at my fullest, and maybe the fear doesn't let me get there. And so that is what DaRa brings to the gathering. It's that, let's go there. She's like the cheerleader when everybody else is quiet. And I am just excited about today, and I want to put in the space that I'm especially excited to have a Black woman in this environment right now. And today, once again, I wake up to the news that another Black man has been shot in Wisconsin by the police in the back. And I don't know the details. His name is Jacob Blake. And I am saying this not for anything in this room to be done about it, but because it was too much for me to hold inside my body today. And laying it out to the earth, and just putting it out there. And so, DaRa, my dear friend, you are on
Well, I don't know if I have the capacity to step into all of that. So thank you. And good morning. And it's not by accident uh, that Isabel found the space, which makes me understand or at least feel that this community must be a very generous community in terms of holding it all for ourselves. And I know that the initial title or rubric under which this weekly meeting was created was Help for the Helpers, I think it was. And I asked Isabel, I said, when she was coaching me in terms of what would be useful for you this morning, and we went back and forth in a lot of ways. And I said, well, has anybody done anything around self-care? And she's like, no, which is the Achilles heel of those of us who are helpers, healers, counselors, medical people, teachers, like people whose business is people. Most often our self-care comes at the end of the list and not at the beginning. So I thought that that's what I would context this morning within, even as it relates to the social unrest, the pandemic, the financial ruin that many people will experience coming out of this time, and the acknowledgement, which perhaps some of you have thought about and some of you have not, the acknowledgement that this long-term impact of these days, right? So like we're still in the kind of crisis of it or trauma of it, the unknowing of it, the unending of it, like we're still in all of that. But 10 to 15 to 20 years from now, it will still be influencing many people, especially those people who are children now, who will grow into the adults that they will be. This is a defining experience in their life, which if all of us think back, for me, it was, I'm a child of the 60s. I was born in the 50s, but my consciousness and recognition to social, external environment was defined and created by the 60s. And I know for me, that was defining in my life, and a lot of the attributes that Isabel and Melinda and Len spoke of in relationship to myself come directly out of the influence of the 60s for me. So when I look around, I know that many of you all were there with me in that time period. Excuse me. And those of you who are younger or older have your 60s, whatever that might be, in terms of the influence in the way you think, and maybe even the choices you made in terms of the careers you've chosen and how you've lived your life. So just wanted to really context that. And I thought that we would begin with actually one of the things that we do in IFOT. One of the things that I do, the other thing that I do besides being a focusing person and the manager of IFOT is I'm also, and a therapist, a psychotherapist. I'm also a meditation teacher. And I was trained through Insight Meditation Society and Spirit Rock in California. So I've been trained as a retreat teacher. It was a 4-year training. So in response to these times and kind of the integration of the many roads that I walk, one of the things that I like to do, especially because of the challenges of today, is to open up the space of being with each other with an acknowledgement of the ancestors. Because I can honestly say, you know, Isabel and and Melinda spoke to what's happening now being centered around the African diaspora experience. It's always been somebody and some group of people since the beginning of time. It's always been somebody. And so what I can say about now is, unless you are of indigenous background, meaning this is the land of your ancestry, unless you fall into that community of people, we all come from conditions of struggle and suffering and trauma and loss initially, because whether it's spoken about frequently or not, the immigration experience contains a lot of that. It contains a lot of joy and appreciation and gratitude and whatnot as well. But most people, if not all people that immigrate here, are either fleeing something or fleeing something or coming to something in terms of a perception of what this country had to offer. And I say that tongue in cheek because we don't actually know anymore what this country has to offer as we move through time in these times. So how I like to open it is to acknowledge the ancestors. And so I'll just say a few names, and then even though it will sound a little bit cacophonous, Isabel, I'm going to ask you at some point to open the mics so that everyone can put names in, right? And we'll just do that for a few minutes. We won't do that for a long time. So, and actually the person that Isabel spoke of, the man that Isabel spoke of just now, Jacob Blake, he has not died at this point. He is in the hospital, so he has not yet become an ancestor. So I won't use his name, but I'm gonna say a few other names and then personal ancestors. So just wanna call in and call on the name of the ancestors to support and guide us and hold us both as we spend this time together this morning, as well as in our lives as we move through each day in this time. So certainly want to bring forward the name of George Floyd, who was the catalyst. It was his murder and the viewing of that by so many that was the catalyst for this whole restructuring, possibly destructuring of our culture and society. And then Breonna Taylor, and then Ahmaud Arbery and Michael Brown, and on and on and on, those known and unknown who have sacrificed, who have been taken in terms of their lives as an opportunity to really support bringing about equality and justice, and actually in the end, unity and love. So just acknowledging all those ancestors. And then each of you feel free, we're not going to open it up yet in this moment, but feel free to speak into the space where you are, your personal ancestors that you may want to bring forward. And it may be people that you are biologically ancestors from, but it could be people that you've been inspired by or who have meant something and contributed something in your lives. So now take a few minutes to just do that. And then I'll ask Isabel to open it up and we can say one or two names into the space together. So for me, and I'll say them silently so that you all can be saying your names. You can open it up, Isabel, now.
Giovanna Barbera,
Jean Genlin,
Person.
Harry Hostman,
Brother David Stendal Rast,
Morgan Monegas,
Charlie Moscovich,
Marty,
John Lewis,
Preston, Dorothy Preston,
Annie Hagan,
Yani.
Victor
Emma Moscovich,
Chris Macron,
Martin Luther King,
Ashe
David
Doma.
Macron,
David Weber, Maureen Corey,
Maury Mose,
John Kennedy,
Murray Weiss,
my grandmother,
So there's a real strength and resilience that we can be connected to by calling in the names of both our personal ancestors as well as those who have inspired or supported us. So I'm going to read a poem, then we're going to do a little attunement with this open time. You do not have to write the next best-selling novel. You do not have to get in the best shape of your life. You do not have to start that podcast. What you can do instead is observe this pause as an opportunity. The same systems we see crumbling in society are being called to crumble in each of us individually. The systems that taught us we are machines that live to produce, and we are disposable if we are not doing so. The systems that taught us momentary gain takes priority over humanity. The systems that create our insecurities and then capitalize off of them. What if we became curious with this free time and had no agenda other than to experience being? What if we created art for the sake of creating? What if we allowed ourselves to rest and cry and laugh and play and get curious about whatever arises in you? What if our true purpose is in this space? As if Mother Earth is saying, we can no longer carry on this way. The time is now, and I am reminding you who you are. Will you remember? And that is by Emma Zeck. So knowing that I've identified that part of the work we do today, this morning, is around self-care, is around being mindful. So that poem, many of us actually may not be experiencing a lot of free time and free space. And I invite you to actually examine that in terms of what the opportunity is here and what the loss will be as we kick into drive, whatever that might look like when we come upon it. So I'd like to do a little bit of an attunement here. This is from IFOT. So just getting comfortable, you know, we're just going to spend a few minutes checking in and seeing how things are now. So one of the most important things, whether it's meditation that you're doing, whether it's this form of inward knowing cultivation called focusing that we do, this turning inwards, one of the most supportive things for that is to be relaxed in body. So to be alert, but relaxed. Yeah, so just checking in there and landing, gathering yourself there. Connecting with the breath, connecting with the body, being supported by the chair, the feet being supported by the floor. Just arriving, getting here. If you were a tree, what would you be? Are you tall and towering? Are you shorter and wide, providing shade? Are you a sapling, just beginning your growth towards mightiness? Are you in the forest or on the shore? In the mountains, in the backyard? Just letting it come forward, not striving, not forcing, just relaxing and allowing it to come forward. Are there other trees there? Are there animals or other beings there with you? How are the roots there with the tree? Are they spread wide and shallow across the land? Are they connected to and touching other roots? Are they going deep, deep, deep into the earth? Is there sunlight or rain? Just taking a look around and allowing the awareness of tree to come forward. And as we come back into the group, just taking a moment before presencing yourself here and now, and just thinking that information, acknowledging that tree, conditions of the tree. Okay, so is there anybody that would like to share anything about that we just did and experienced?
I'd love to share.
Thank you, Sophie.
The bamboo came for me. The bamboo, the way I saw them in Brazil, like, wow, like a big forest, really tall, together, with roots like, so strong, going everywhere, planting itself, wherever they find space. And its flexibility, the wind and the tallness going high in the sky. So I'm really connected to the bamboo.
All right, thank you for sharing that. And look at the medicine and all of that, the teaching there that the bamboo is offering you. And also I might go so far as to say, even in terms of how your constitution is in this moment, grounded and strong and flexible. A lot of medicine in that. So thank you for sharing that.
That was such a strong and quick shift for me. There's a tree in my backyard that I've been forming a relationship with. What's part of what I'm a visual artist, and there was a line, I was very involved in my art 10 years ago, and then the line was a flowing river. And I've had to step back from my art for energetic reasons. But most recently, the line came from this tree, and it's upward and branching. And just so quickly, I went into, like, my head feels a little different now. And it happened so quickly. I've been doing another meditation practice, and it's slow to get there. And sometimes I don't, and it's resistant. And here it was like, okay, I'm here. I'm in. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for pointing those things out and for sharing your experience. And, this is something I do periodically it's like a check-in also, in addition. So there's the medicine component for ourselves in terms of what may be helpful or useful at any time or at any moment. But there's also the shifting and the grounding and the getting here. And it doesn't have to be, this is something you all can do for yourselves. You can do with clients, or you can do with conditions or circumstances. And it doesn't always have to be a tree. It could be water, it could be flowers, whatever arises as might be helpful in the moment. So thank you for sharing. Thank you both for sharing. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. So I just want to read a couple of quotes, and then we're going to look at one of those pieces of music and video, and then I'll have to say a few words, and then we'll go into some small groups. So here's some quotes for you. So Audre Lorde, who was a poet and an activist, openly out and lesbian woman who really championed, she was a professor as well, who really championed social justice and really engaging with the system to impact the system in such a way that it's a system that works for everybody. She's no longer with us. She died from breast cancer a number of years ago. But this is what she said. Caring for myself is not self-indulgence. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. She said that a number of years ago, and it is so apropos to the conditioning that we receive in this culture in terms of doing more, doing more, doing more, doing more, getting more, having more, engaging more. So an act of commitment to self-care is a radical act in our culture. And these two quotes are from the NAP ministry. So the NAP ministry is a philosophy on, what is it on? It's on Instagram. And I am not a social, what do you call it? Social communication I don't even do Facebook. And I know now Facebook is old. Like now it's Twitter and Instagram. But I almost joined Instagram just so I could get the NAP ministry's daily sayings, but I have a friend who volunteered to send them to me so I didn't have to join social media. So I still have an AOL email address. So here's two quotes from the NAP ministry. Our obsession with productivity as a function of our worth is preventing us from tending to our souls. Naps are soul care. And she's literally talking about naps, our soul care. This is out of the mind of a Black woman. The second quote is this. You all keep hollering about this new world that will emerge post-pandemic. Yet you won't even rest or slow down enough to receive the innovative thinking necessary to build this world. You think you can create a new liberated world while being exhausted. It is not possible. So both of those are quotes from the NAP ministry. So what I want to really invite you to is taking a look at creating space for yourself as helpers, as supporters, as caregivers, whatever the numerous and various roles are that you may play in your life, as well as for ourselves. You know, there's this kind of collective, overriding, general awareness that we have in all the dysfunction and suffering and challenges in the world. That's the three that I named, but you know, there's many repercussions from those three. Many of us are also engaged with our own personal struggles. You know, health doesn't take a vacation because all this other stuff is going on. The needs of family doesn't take a vacation because of all of this other stuff going on. I live with my 96-year-old mom who is as clear as a tack in mind, and who is pretty good in body, but arthritis is her bailiwick to deal with, you know. And so I live with a 96-year-old, I'm gonna just underscore that, Black woman. So in terms of having a living, breathing example of navigating this world and this country in a Black female's skin is up close and personal. And she is so equanimous and grounded. And I suppose it's because she is 96 and has seen a lot in her almost 100 years. Especially as a Black woman, in terms of that being a time frame where Black people and Indigenous people have been terrorized and assaulted against. And again, remember, that's the current happenings, but I know none of us have escaped that, whether it's historical or present day. And so I already spoke about the long-term repercussions and the rise in social structural reactions like Isabel spoke to today. But, you know, those of us that work within, whether it's private practice, within community mental health centers, who are coaches, who are teachers, and who are nurses, who are doctors, also know that there's been a rise in domestic violence. There's a rise in loss and grief. There's a rise in addiction. There's an arising across the gamut, across the board, in terms of reaction as opposed to response, reaction to the conditions of today. And so I ask you to take a look at what is yours, what is ours to unravel and untangle, so that we can bring our best self to whatever person, relationship, circumstance, situation, or condition that may come our way. And also to invite us to clearly recognize the importance of engaging with the practice of intention setting, because intention, whether it be unconscious or conscious, is the state, is the activity which brings forth, well, it's not really activity, it's the state and the understanding that brings forth action. So every moment of the day, there's these intentions that we're not necessarily paying attention to, and that's what keeps us moving forward in life. And that's good, and we don't need to do anything about that. That has forward movement and is handling itself. But what I'm asking or inviting you to add to that is being intentional about intention, and also to set some intentions for yourself that can assist you, support you, ground you, offer you, hold you in well-being. So I want to show a video now, right quick. Isabel's going to screen share it with us. It's by a poetry rap musical group called Climbing PoeTree, and they spell poetry P-O-E, capital T-R-E-E, Climbing PoeTree. And the name of this piece is We Will Survive. But this is not the We Will Survive that Lynn and I were talking about from the 70s, the disco version, but this is a new version.
Of Selma and Nagasaki, and we will survive Palestine. We survived Vietnam and Wounded Knee, Rwanda and Mississippi. The 50 stripes around our stars, 50 years to life behind their bars. We survived middle school and self-inflicted scars, losing our mothers to our fathers' hands. We survived slavery and genocide, came back from the dead and spread like wildfire. The screams and the echoes, the cutbacks, the evictions, the droughts and the prisons, Jim Crow and gas chambers, for warfare and lynching. The seeds from our strange fruit been sprinkled across this terrain by our angels. And everywhere we land, we're gonna take root. And every inch of rock, mud and sand, we're gonna break through. You're here right now. I'm seeing you with my own two eyes. Think of all the demons that tried to take you, and you still survive. and we will survive. To annihilate our angels, we summon the strength of all those who came before us, and all those coming. We must free freedom in our fingers when the world gives us nothing but believing a new day is coming. In my soul, I know we will. Everything's gonna be
one of the things that I wanted to bring forward is that art and creativity and expression is one of the places that we can turn to, that we can engage with to support us. And the other reason why I wanted to show it was these are young people, right? And the so many of us are kind of moving into or already have arrived in the place where we are the elders, where we are the ones that can share our experiences, that can share our thoughts and observances about things. But the action, even the people in the streets now mostly, are the young people. And we can take actual rest in that it does continue, and that the change is coming from that part of our lineage. So wanted to share that. And also, you know, in the connection that they were making, that the ancestors are rooting for us and that we should expect miracles. We've all survived. You know, I started off saying that unless you are an indigenous person, none of us are from this land originally, ancestrally, whether our ancestors chose to come here or were forcibly brought here. None of us are original to this land. And there's a real opportunity to keep that in acknowledgement too, because the truth and clarity and awareness is what supports and feeds wisdom, and what supports and feeds well-being, so that our nervous systems, our bodies, are not so constantly agitated by the illusion of the non-truths about where we are, how we got here, and what we're doing. And if we're helpers, it's of the utmost importance that we have clarity and wisdom as we engage with other people's sufferings, and to support other people. So I also, on that tip, just want to remind people, we just hit 100 years I think within the last week or so, where women had the right to vote in this country. And we all are aware, if there's drifted in anywhere from the news sources, that Black folk, men and women, didn't have the right to vote until 1965. That's within all of our lifetime. So we are still in the unfolding of the promise that this country can be. And we actually, because of our experience, our age, our awareness, and what we do, and these practices, whether it's focusing, whether it's meditation, whether it's being an artist, these practices really position us to be able to engage with the world, with our communities, with this country in a way that is helpful. Angela Davis says that freedom embraces more than we can imagine. So whether it's our personal freedom, whether it's our familial freedom, whether it's our cultural freedom, it's all on a continuum. And I actually wonder if any freedom is really possible without the freedom of all. So just a few words about self-care practice. And this is actually from my Garrison days. So 3 words that kind of can support you in engaging with taking that on, and that's awareness, balance, and connection, the ABCs of self-care. So with awareness, like getting present, being present, the if you were is one of the examples of a quick way that we can just really get present in our bodies and get present in relationship to what's before us. So getting present, meditating, focusing, just engaging the breath. Yeah, running, walking, exercising, being out in nature. Nature, the ultimate healer, as well as destroyer, but it's also the ultimate healer. Dancing, journaling, creating a practice of gratitude, just clearing space. Don't even have to do a whole session or just clear space, put stuff down or let it be beside you and not on you or in you. So those are some of the practices and ways of thinking about establishing awareness. And another word for that is mindfulness. That's the watchword today in our culture around cultivating awareness. But knowing that everything arises from there. If you're aware, you get a certain set of skills coming forward. If you're unaware, you get maybe some other things coming forward that don't really stand by you and serve you. So just thinking about that. And then lastly, in terms of awareness, creating time for reflection. Creating time for reflection. So then there's balance, ABCs, balance. Some of these practices are cultivating an equanimity practice. And by equanimity practice, it doesn't mean becoming uninvolved, disengaged, non-attached, in denial. It actually, the way I like to think about equanimity, this is from one of the teachings that I've read. The way I think about equanimity, it's kind of like the sun shines and the sun is always shining. It doesn't decide, oh, it's cloudy today, I'm not going to shine here, or I'm going to shine over here in Brazil. Somebody spoke about, I'm going to shine over here in Brazil, but I'm not going to shine over here in the US. Or the sun just shines and has no preference, has no discernment about where it does its thing. And so that's how I kind of hold equanimity and cultivating equanimity, because equanimity, if one is grounded and sourced by equanimity, then it doesn't preclude that challenges don't come, that sickness doesn't happen, that chaos isn't present, that, whatever it might be in any moment. It doesn't mean that that doesn't happen, but it means that when life happens as it does 24/7. When life happens, we're situated and grounded such that we can respond or choose to non-respond if that's the appropriate thing in that moment, without the ego being caught up in it. So that's how I think about equanimity. So that's part of a balance practice, to be self-empowered, to examine, really engage with whatever the conditions or things are that are in our life that disempower us. And then taking a look at what needs to be done or not done, or shifted or transformed or changed, such that we take each step forward in our lives from a position, from a place of being empowered to be responsible for ourselves, being empowered to be in relationship with people, with conditions. The use of music, creativity, art, literature, in terms of supporting balance, laying things down, and having time for relaxing. So there's the ABCs: awareness, balance, connection. And then with awareness, there's creating time for reflection. And with balance, there's creating time for relaxation. And then there's connection, lastly, of the ABCs. So with connection, we're talking about being engaged, being in community, being in relationship with family or friends, with ancestors, with nature, cultivating compassion, such that there is a place to step into for yourself and others when you're in relationship, telling your story or listening to stories. So under connection, there is creating time for reclamation, reclaiming the heart. So awareness, balance, connection, a time for reflection, a time for relaxing, a time for reclaiming. And of course, don't forget, under the self-care rubric is all of those things that are maybe a little bit more complicated in this time of pandemic, but making sure you go to the doctor, making sure you get enough sleep, making sure you're eating as best you can, making sure you drink a lot of water, making sure of those aspects of living that support the body, support the nervous system, support the mind. So I think we'll just do a few minutes experiential, and just before doing this experiential or this attunement, whichever word you want to use, just also remember, I've been speaking to it but haven't spoken to it directly by naming it, that there are big chunks of what I'm talking about, which is talking about vicarious trauma, and talking about vicarious trauma through the years. So we may have our own vicarious trauma from whatever our childhoods or circumstances are in life, or even the collective traumas that we may have taken on in our nervous systems. Like I talk about the 60s and the TV viewing of the Vietnam War and the injustices against Black folk in the 60s, and that went into my nervous system. So it's not something that happened to me, but it's something that was happening in the sphere. But also vicarious trauma traveling through the generations. So for those of you that are survivors, are children of survivors, that would be a trauma that travels through the generations. Those of you who have a family member that immigrated from many, many years ago, hundreds of years ago, even as refugees or as political refugees or whatever, that's trauma traveling through the generations. And that oftentimes is in our story and we're not even aware it's in our story. So all of these practices and all of these ways of knowing and having wisdom about that include the vicarious trauma-ness of living. So getting comfortable again in your seat, eyes closed or open, whichever resonates for you. And if you choose to have your eyes, keep your eyes open, then just kind of like look out a foot or two in front of you in a very soft, gentle, unfocused way. So just gather your awareness for this internal journey. And this is a piece from IFOT also. So we're going to do a little experiential, which is reflective of some of what I've been talking about this morning. We won't be going too deep, so there's no worries about that. And please take a look to see if it resonates for you to participate. And if it doesn't, you can just sit quietly. You want to really just try this on and explore it. And if you do choose to engage and have an experience with this, you may walk away with a bit more space, a bit more freedom around an issue or a person or a circumstance that's in your life. So just settling in and relaxing, breathing in and breathing out. Thinking of a person or a circumstance or a situation that you're struggling with right now, where there's some challenge or trouble, but not the biggest challenge, not the biggest trouble, not the most difficult person. Just take a bit here. Just taking a look where there might be some constriction or some contraction or some stagnation of movement, something right now in your life with this person or this circumstance. And just taking a moment to notice them and that the struggle you may be having with the person or the circumstance, and making a bit of space between you and them or you and it. Really wanting you to find that person or situation. Placing them out there in front of you, or placing that circumstance out there in front of you. Creating a little distance, a little space. Now, taking a bigger step back, have a good long look at that person or at that circumstance or at that condition. Let them be there out in front of you with space there. Let them be at their very worst out there in front of you. Or let that circumstance be its very worst out there in front of you. Really getting a sense of the person or the circumstance in front of you being just so difficult, so challenging. Observe them or it closely. What kind of animal might that person be there? Or what kind of animal might reflect that circumstance there? A hissing snake, a wolverine out to attack, a pathetic mouse, an angry bear. What kind of animal most reflects that? Just let them be that over there, away from you. Whatever comes forward, just let them be that over there. Now, bringing yourself back to your own body, checking in and noticing what's there, and seeing what kind of animal you are there in the face of that animal over there being so difficult? What kind of animal are you there? What animal would you be called to be when facing that animal over there? Notice yourself there when you are at your worst. What animal are you? Taking another moment and looking to see what kind of animal you would need to transform yourself into to make the best for all concerned, best for them or best for the situation. What is an elegant resolution for you? Take a moment and try that on. Notice yourself being your best animal there. How does the situation change in the face of this new you? How is it there in your body now? Notice how the relationship changes when you change. The answers or the medicine or the wisdom of trauma usually lay in nature. Animals are alive and they usually operate in life from their own true nature. We are nature. And in an all my relations way, related to nature and animal to animal. Just before we close and come out of this experience, maybe you can think of one step you can take from this new place of being now. Now that you are out of that constricted, confined, reactive place. And it may be that the medicine is just to have received. And taking in a deep breath. And another. And one last one. Coming back into the space here and now. So as I love to do, I'm going to end us with a poem. So this is for us. This poem is by Joy Harjo, who is an Indigenous poet laureate here in the United States. And she's written a lot of poetry that many of you may enjoy and find helpful in reading. So the name of this poem is For Calling the Spirit Back from Wandering the Earth in Its Human Feet. Put down that bag of potato chips, that white bread, that bottle of pop. Turn off that cell phone, computer, and remote control. Open the door, then close it behind you. Take a breath offered by friendly winds. They travel the earth, gathering essences of plants to clean. Give it back with gratitude. If you sing, it will give your spirit lift to fly in the stars and back. Acknowledge this earth who has cared for you since you were a dream, planting itself precisely within your parents' desire. Let your moccasin feet take you to the encampment of the guardians who have known you before time and who will be there after time. They sit before the fire that has been there without time. Let the earth stabilize your post-colonial insecure jitters. Be respectful of the small insects, birds, and animal people who accompany you. Ask their forgiveness for the harm we humans have brought down upon them. Don't worry, the heart knows the way, though there may be high rises, interstates, checkpoints, armed soldiers, massacres, wars, and those who will despise you because they despise themselves. The journey may take you a few hours, a day, a year, a few years, 100, 1,000, or even more. Watch your mind. Without training, it might run away and leave your heart for the immense human feast set by the thieves of time. Do not hold regrets. When you find your way to the circle, to the fire kept burning by the keepers of your soul, you will be welcomed. You must clean yourself with cedar, sage, or other healing plants. Cut the ties you have to failure and shame. Let go the pain you are holding in your mind, your shoulders, your heart, all the way to your feet. Let go the pain of your ancestors to make way for those who are heading in our direction. Ask for forgiveness. Call upon the help of those who love you. These helpers take many forms: animal, element, bird, angel, saint, stone, or ancestor. Call your spirit back. It may be caught in corners and creases of shame, judgment, and human abuse. You must call in a way that your spirit will want to return. Speak to it as you would to a beloved child. Welcome your spirit back from its wandering. It may return in pieces, in tatters. Gather them all together. They will be happy to be found after having been lost for so long. Your spirit will need to sleep a while, even after it is bathed and given clean clothes. Now you can have a party. Invite everyone you know who loves and supports you. Keep room for those who have no place else to go. Make a giveaway, and remember, keep the speeches short. Then you must do this. Help the next person find their way through the dark. 2 minutes over. It's been a pleasure to be with you all this morning. And perhaps we'll visit again together. But everyone be well